Hello everyone. How does the idea of having a single election for the state and the centre sound to you? Once in 5 years, you go to the poll booth and simultaneously vote for your MLA and your MP, and by extension, of course, your Chief Minister and Prime Minister. It saves you effort and saves the exchequer money and manpower. And when I say exchequer, I of course mean it saves the taxpayers' money, hopefully. Now, the idea of one nation, one poll isn't new. India had simultaneous polls before. General elections and state elections to all state assemblies were held together between 1952 and 1967. Essentially, when India's electoral journey started, it started with simultaneous polls. The process ended as new states started emerging and some old ones were reorganized. The idea of reverting back to simultaneous polls was suggested by the Election Commission in its annual report in 1983. In 2014, the BJP pitched for one nation, one poll in its election manifesto, with Prime Minister Modi repeatedly batting for simultaneous elections. Just listen in first to what he had said in 2020.
One nation, one election सिर्फ एक चर्चा का विषय नहीं है, बल्कि ये भारत की जरूरत है। हर कुछ महीने में भारत में कहीं न कहीं बड़े चुनाव हो रहे होते हैं। इससे विकास के कार्यों पर जो प्रभाव पड़ता है, उसे आप सब भली भांति जानते हैं। ऐसे में वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन पर गहन अध्ययन और मंथन आवश्यक है और इसमें पीठासीन अधिकारी काफी मार्गदर्शन कर सकते हैं, गाइड कर सकते हैं, लीड कर सकते हैं। इसके साथ ही लोकसभा हो, विधानसभा हो या पंचायत चुनाव हो, इनके लिए एक ही वोटर लिस्ट काम में आए, इसके लिए हमें सबसे पहले रास्ता बनाना होगा।
That was 2020. Cut to 2023. We are a year away from general elections, and the Modi government has put intent into action and formed a committee under former President Ram Nath Kovind to formulate a roadmap. Now, as I said, on paper, the principles are solid and no one can disagree with the intent of one nation, one poll. The BJP argues it will save money and manpower. It will save the taxpayers' money. It will do away with the administrative paralysis that an election code of conduct brings with it. The opposition, in turn, is calling it undemocratic and impractical, and their concerns too are legitimate. If one nation, one poll is to become a reality, then at least 5 constitutional amendments are needed and 50% states need to be on board. Essentially, political consensus is key, and in the times we live in, it's virtually impossible. The government knows it. So is the move just a red herring to divert attention from the opposition's growing strength? Or is the intent real? Question also is, why was the balloon floated now? Is it because Prime Minister Modi, fresh off the Chandrayaan success and the possible success of the G20 summit, wants to cash in on his popularity and win states as well as the centre? We have seen that in India, voters are very clear. While they prefer Prime Minister Modi at the centre, they don't necessarily want the BJP in their state. Case in point, Delhi. Case in point, Karnataka. Will simultaneous polls give the edge to the party that rules the centre, in this case the BJP? Will national issues drown regional issues? The theories and the questions, ladies and gentlemen, are many, so are opinions. So over the next 30 minutes, I'm speaking to national and regional parties to understand where they stand and what this move actually means for you and me as citizens, as voters, and more importantly, as I always say, as taxpayers. First, let's quickly listen in to all the reactions that have come in.
How is it significant? There have been 3 such committees. Let me tell you which ones. There was a Parliamentary Standing Committee report submitted. There's a Niti Aayog report submitted. There's a Law Commission report submitted. And all these significant committees held earlier have significantly said that it becomes difficult to have one nation, one election because it goes against the basic structure of the constitution, which is India's federal democracy. It says there will be 5 constitutional amendments that would be required, where you will need more than 3/4 majority to pass it in both houses in the parliament. Then these amendments will go to every state assembly, and every state assembly will have to give above 50% majority to be able to make this happen. Over 15,000 crores would need to be invested to buy EVM machines and VVPAT machines. They have said there are inadequate security, inadequate election commission staff. So what are they joking about?
साथ ही में दूसरी एक और अफवाह फैलाई है कि वन नेशन वन पोल की तैयारी चल रही है। मेरा जहाँ तक के मानना है कि सरकार को जब भी चाहे चुनाव करवाने का अधिकार है। लोकसभा चुनाव मई 2024 में होने वाला है। अगर जल्दी कराना है तो सरकार कर सकती है। बाकी राज्यों के विधानसभा चुनाव कुछ अगले साल है, कुछ अभी है। उनके साथ लोकसभा चुनाव कराना चाहते तो कोई कानून लाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, सरकार का अधिकार होता है।
ना, अभी तो कमेटी रचा है, इतना घबराने का क्या जरूरत है। अभी तो कमेटी रचाया गया है। कमेटी रचाने के बाद इसका कमेटी का रिपोर्ट आएगा। कमेटी का रिपोर्ट पब्लिक डोमेन में चर्चा होगा। अगर पार्लियामेंट में जब आता है, पार्लियामेंट में चर्चा होगा। पार्लियामेंट प्रबुद्ध है, भारत देश का प्रजाप्रभुत्व एकदम मैच्योर्ड है, प्रबुद्ध प्रजाप्रभुत्व है, उसमें चर्चा होगा। इतना घबराने का क्या बात है।
मैं तो सही मैंने ते साडी पार्टी ते मैं ਇਹਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਚ हर दूजे दिन इलेक्शन हो जाते हैं। एक पार्लीमेंट ते एमएलए इलेक्शन एक टाइम होने चाहिए है। एक नेशन वन इलेक्शन वन नेशन बहुत बढ़िया गल है ते पूरे देश में सहमति होनी चाहिए है।
You've heard from some political representatives there. Let me introduce my guest to you. Again, this is not going to be a tutu meme chat. The intention over the next 30 minutes or so is to try and understand where everyone stands on the issue, because ultimately consensus will be key if one nation, one poll is to become a reality. Regional parties do not want it. Opposition parties do not want it. How will it be possible? What's the intent of the government floating this balloon right now when they know it's not going to be possible? Basiri Swaraj is the secretary of the Delhi BJP, joining us on the broadcast. Sujata Paul is spokesperson of the Congress Party. Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. And Fugas Gandhi is spokesperson of the DMK. All four of you, thank you very much. Who should I start with? Maybe I should start with the BJP. Given the fact that it's the BJP that has floated the balloon. Good to see you once again, Basuri. Can you help me understand whether one nation, one poll is something that we will see come up in this special session of Parliament that has been called? Is that the reason why the special session has been called? Because the government is being very secretive. We do not know what this special session is going to do.
Thank you, Shreya. I don't think that the government is being secretive. I think the government is being very conscientious. Today, a committee has been formed under as the convener is former President Kovind. None of my panelists can dispute the fact that he's had a stellar career. He is somebody who has tremendous amount of legislative and electoral experience. And of course, by virtue of being the former president of the country, he's above politics. Now, Shreya, this is not an aspect about politics. This is about what is in the best interest of the country. You yourself are absolutely right that in 1951 to 52, 1957, 1962, 1967, all throughout these years, there was only one poll that used to happen. There were simultaneous elections for the Lok Sabha as well as the legislative assemblies. It is only in 1968 and 69 when certain legislative assemblies were dissolved before their time, and the Lok Sabha was dissolved in 1970, earlier than its tenure, that the cycle or the rhythm of having simultaneous polls was disturbed. But it is undisputed. All the various reports, whether it's the Niti Aayog report or it's the 2018 Law Commission report, each of the reports have said that having a simultaneous one election for the entire nation has not only financial implications, because as you said, there was a whopping cost of 60,000 crore rupees for the 2019 Lok Sabha elections. This is, of course, the election expenditure of all the political parties put together, along with the Election Commission of India. Now, that cost will come down. The administrative machinery will now start working towards development, which gets, because implementation of government policies get hindered, I would say, with a constant code of conduct being imposed. There is definitely a burden on security forces and on administrative setup, which will definitely be relieved if there is one election throughout the country. And most importantly, the voter turnout is much higher when you have a single election, because India has become a country which is perpetually in elections. So there's an electoral fatigue that sets in. And therefore, that is why not only was this part of the manifesto of the BJP in 2014, but the Honorable Prime Minister has repeatedly requested for it. The panel today is, I think, a exploratory mission. It is also an consensus building exercise. Whether it will be tabled during the special session of Parliament, frankly speaking, I'm not an astrologer. This is speculation. We will have to see what is tabled in Parliament.
So, Basuri, very quickly before I get others in, you yourself have mentioned 3 reports that have studied one nation, one election, right? There is a Law Commission report of 2018, there's a Parliamentary Standing Committee report, there's a Niti Aayog report as well. Now, if there are these 3 reports that are already available, ये शगुफा आज कहाँ से आ गया पैनल का? There are already these are reports that were commissioned by the BJP government. There was the need to form a panel for a new for a new report to be submitted.
Because these are older reports. We are in 2023. Today, I mean, we need to have a consensus building. We need to, as the Prime Minister said, manthan aur gehan chintan ki avashyakta hai. We need somebody who is as able as former President Kovind, with this tremendous amount of experience behind him, to explore in the current topography of India, political terrain of India, the feasibility of it. This is something which should be welcomed.
Okay. Ghanshyam Tiwari, what Basuri is saying is this. She says this is for the country. Don't look at it politically. This is something that will work well for the country. It will save you manpower, it will save you money, and hopefully it will ensure a larger voter turnout as well. So why question the exercise even before it begins?
Well, good evening, Shreya, to you, my fellow co-panelists and the viewers. And let me congratulate you that you nailed the question right in the beginning. Setting the tone of it, that clearly this is impossible. Doing this in the upcoming election is impossible. But this was set out as a hot air balloon. And the question is why? Because they wanted to distract the agenda from the one nation, one businessman scam that is going on across the world, to which the government has to answer. It cannot answer. They have to distract the agenda with respect to what is going on with respect to China. They have to distract the agenda with respect to India alliance meeting. As far as this particular idea or rumor, I would say, is concerned, even today, right now, it's a shame that in a vibrant democracy of 140 crore people, we do not know what the agenda, A, B, C of the agenda of a parliament session by a government that has an infamy of the least number of sittings in the 17th Lok Sabha since independence. It beats its own record of 16th Lok Sabha. Clearly, the Prime Minister, whose average performance in the Parliament in terms of number of debates he has attended or questions he has answered is lowest among any other Prime Minister in the country. So they don't believe in parliamentary democracy. As far as the reports itself is concerned, on July 27, this government told the Parliament, the Rajya Sabha, written reply by the Papad famous law minister, Mr. Meghwal, saying that there is elaborate roadmap would be planned. So we have a parliament session without an agenda. We have an unnamed committee whose only legitimacy is a photograph with JP Nadda. Nobody knows the name of the committee. Nobody knows its members. Nobody knows its constituency. There is a report on which the Parliament, the government has already commented. The last time the Prime Minister seriously commented was after a meeting that Rajnath Singh held in June 2019. So clearly this is not a priority for the government. If it is not a priority, why is this rumor being spread? because it allows the government to distract the country from the one nation, one businessman scam that is unfolding and the formidable alliance that Team India has created to make this government answer on its own promises. There is no dearth of good ideas floated by the Prime Minister.
Okay.
I am saying this because you showed a visual of the Prime Minister. 2 crore jobs per year is a good idea. Did they deliver? Answer is no. Getting black money is a good idea. Did they deliver? Answer is no. Doubling the farm income. Apparently, the farm bill was written by an NRI and Adani Group, as has come out in the media. Well, it was not even a good idea, but the government said it's a good idea. So I think we must always suspect their agenda, because their agenda is pro their businessmen friends and anti people.
Okay. Okay, but Ghanshyam Tiwari, you have still not told me where the Samajwadi Party stands on the idea of one nation, one poll. वो छोड़ो, होगा नहीं होगा, we know अभी होने वाला नहीं है. We know that consensus will be key, and in the political environment of today, there is going to be no consensus. I'm asking you, principally, does the Samajwadi Party, just on the basis of principles on paper, support the idea of one nation, one election, or do you think it's undemocratic?
In the submission to the Law Commission, we made an in-principle support, but something like this depends on this execution plan. And Notbandi, great idea of Prime Minister. Look at the execution. It bewildered and impoverished large swaths of people across the country. Similarly, one nation, one election. You need a single voter list from panchayat to the national level. You need to shorten some assemblies, extend certain assemblies. You need to build a certain kind of consensus in the country, which is exactly this government deficiency. They don't want to do that. So as a result, a dishonest idea cannot get a honest opinion. If this government is honest, let them confidently say that we are going to discuss this for 2 days in the parliament. There are elected representatives across the country, and we will know whether their idea is backed by a solid plan that requires a merit of support or criticism.
Okay, so you're saying let the government come out with more solid details, and then we will see whether we support it or not, right, Ghanshyam? That is what you're saying. Right now, you're saying by the looks of it, it's an election shagufa. It's a way to, it's at least an attempt to try and distract people who are watching from the alliance that is taking shape, the opposition alliance that is taking shape. So you should read it as that, possibly a red herring, nothing more than that. Mr. Gandhi, in your view, is this a red herring, and where does the DMK stand on one nation, one poll? For example, I'm just asking you, if it was a Congress party that was bringing in one nation, one poll or talking about it, would you have supported it principally? Where does your party stand on it?
See, whether it is Congress or BJP, we don't support this concept of one nation, one election, because this is totally a bizarre idea. Today, as far as BJP is concerned, it is mainly to divert the attention from India Alliance meeting today, which happened today, and also to divert the attention from the scam which surfaced yesterday about BJP's Master Adani, and that has become a routine daily affair these days. But the problem here is, seems that the ruling dispensation is not clear about what they are talking about. One nation, one election in normal parlance means simultaneous election for both the parliament and all the state assemblies, making specially the tenure of the parliament and the state assemblies coterminous with each other. This is what we call it as one nation, one election. This is absolutely impossible and will lead only to multiple elections at the same time, because the whole idea goes with the wrong notion that single party will rule the country and there is no scope for coalition politics. Let me give 3 scenarios. What if there is a coalition government in the center, and if it fails, will we dissolve all the assembly along with the parliament? Scenario number 2, what if a coalition government in the state fails? Will we dissolve all the other state assemblies and also the parliament and conduct elections? And what if a chief minister or prime minister gets disqualified, like what Madam Jayalalitha got disqualified, leading to the collapse of a government? Will we conduct election for all? This will only create more and more elections. For example, if there is a coalition failing in Sikkim, even for a small state like Sikkim or Goa, you need to conduct election for the whole of the country. This cannot be implemented at all. On the other hand, the Law Commission has given a different recommendation. Actually, it is not talking about one nation, one election, but it is making an attempt to conduct elections at the same time. See, the Law Commission has recommended for fixing a reference date as the parliament election date. Now we are heading to 2024, and let us keep the 2024 as the reference date. What the Law Commission is saying is, those assemblies whose tenure ends before 2024 will be extended up to 2024 parliamentary elections. For example, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. And those states whose assembly tenure goes beyond 2024, for example, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and recent Karnataka even, who has got more than 3 years left, and will be dissolved in 2024, and the elections will be held along with the parliamentary elections. This is nothing but union government imposing Article 356 against these unfavorable states and dissolving them in an indirect way. It is just a constitutional fraud. This is what we are objecting to.
Okay, Mr. Gandhi, I think you make some very important and valid points, and those essentially, Basuri, are the concerns that are being raised by people who study the Constitution as well. They're saying if you bring one nation, one election, there are at least 5 constitutional amendments that will be required. A, can it be done? Sure, it can be done if there is consensus. You will need the go-ahead from 50% states. Can it be done? Looks extremely difficult given the fact that no opposition party will back the BJP's move. There are only 2 parties that I know that have come forward to back the move: AIA, DMK, and the Akali Dal from Punjab. But Basuri, a point that Mr. Gandhi raises is very important. What if a coalition government in the centre fails? Will every state have to go through elections again? What if the government in Goa or in Sikkim fails? In that case, will we have a general election once again just because a government in a state has failed? These are practical questions that will be asked, and so far the government doesn't have answers.
Thank you, Shreya. So first of all, it is not true that the opposition hasn't backed. In fact, in 2019, if you remember, the Honorable Prime Minister had called all party heads to have a sort of a consensus and generally to get an idea. In fact, at that time, the Aam Aadmi Party, the Telugu Desam, and the Bharat Rashtra Samiti all sent representatives to basically discuss this particular point. So as far as constitutional amendments are concerned, as I say this as a lawyer, the Constitution is an ever-evolving document. So if there are 5 constitutional amendments required, then that is not a hurdle, it's a requirement. Now, whatever needs to be done in the best interest of the country, I know that all political parties will come together, and I'm sure that we're all representatives of the people. In the interest of the nation, we will do whatever is necessary. And therefore, today, only a panel has been set up under as President Kovind as the convener. Every question that was asked by Mr. Gandhi is going to be explored. And of course, the issues are going to be ironed out. The feasibilities, and this is an exploratory mission. All feasibility studies are going to be done. As far as what Mr. Tiwari has said, I must say, Mr. Tiwari, please give yourself a little more credit. You are trying to be such a robust opposition. I'm sure there is nothing that the Modi government can do to dissuade you from any issues that you want to raise in Parliament.
Sujata Paul, will you come in here now? I'm still unclear about where the Congress stands on one nation, one poll. The Congress today, there were sound bites from Rahul Gandhi, there were sound bites from Mr. Kharge as well. They are all questioning the timing of the move. But principally, where does the Congress party stand?
So we are very clear about the stand that we are going to take. We will not allow anybody to mess with the Constitution. Because if there had to be some discussion, there should have been a discussion earlier one. And that's why we are questioning the timing. There is a trust deficit with this government. And what does the government want to do? The government wants to, divert attention in a country which is very diverse. And that is the diversionary tactic used to divert attention from that one nation, one businessman, one prime minister and his one friend. But that's not going to happen. Of course, he has been successful to a certain extent, because if you look at what the discussion today is on television channels is about what is going to happen in the special parliament session, whereas today the morning started with discussions on what was happening with the India alliance. So that was very successful, and that has rattled the Prime Minister. However, if I talk about the one nation, one election, there are certain things which are quite confusing. But I do understand that the Prime Minister expects everybody to be a clone of everybody else, which is something that we will fight tooth and nail. But If you look at the municipalities and the panchayat elections, they are a state subject. So if my friend from the BJP is a lawyer, she should explain how is it that you want to have simultaneous elections and then say that this will become the prerogative of the center. That means you are going to hit at the basic structure of our constitution. And when we talk about what happened in the initial years after we gained independence, quite truly, obviously, we were going from one election to another, and 5-year governments were completing their term. But what happened after 1967 is bound to happen again. And like my friend Mr. Gandhi has already mentioned, and I will not repeat it, what happens when a certain government falls or a certain assembly is dissolved or the center falls? However, the cost factor that they are talking about should also explain that if you're talking about the EVMs, that means the EVM number of EVMs should be tripled if you're going to have a 3-tier election. And that means that right now you have about 19 to 20 lakhs. So you'll have to manufacture 60 lakhs, 40 more lakhs. Now, all the EVMs are said to have a life span of about 15 years. So can you imagine, after about 15 years, you'll suddenly have this burden of replacing all the machines. So we must keep in account what the hurdles that we are going to be facing in the coming times. But if you look at the EVMs, 40% of the balloting units should be there. And that is from past experience. And if you look at the control units, there should be about 20% of them. And do you know the cost of it? 28 lakh balloting units, 24 lakhs control units, and the tentative expenditure on the procurement of EVMs alone will be 3,570 odd crores. Whereas if you talk about the VVPATs, which should also be doubled, the tentative, no, I'm talking about the cost factor. They were talking about the cost factor getting reduced, but suddenly
But that's a one-time cost.
To be taken into account.
Sujata Paul, that is a one-time cost.
No, but what I'm saying is it hasn't been taken into account in the budget, right? And elections are around the corner. So what I'm trying to say is, how are you going to account for that suddenly at this point of time? So I do understand that this is only a shagufa or a jumla of the Prime Minister to divert attention. However, the last point is that there was a study conducted by the IDFC Institute in 2015. And what they said was that if there are simultaneous elections, what happens is that 77% people who vote tend to vote for the same winning party at both the center and the state. So what is happening is the regional issues are going to be pushed back and the national issues are going to be, of prime importance, because the center can easily announce a central scheme and people are going to vote for that. They're going to ask for votes on that. So one must understand that the regional issues in a federal structure are always very important and you can't do that. And if, the same study also showed that if it goes after 6 months, there were about 61% people alone who would choose the same party. So there was a reduction there within 6 months. Let us remember that there will be accountability and our legislators will be on their toes if elections happen over a period of time rather than having everything together. Yes.
All right, that's a very fair point to make. Mr. Gandhi, is that one of the concerns as well? That if one nation, one election does become a reality, it will be advantage BJP?
See, it will be an advantage BJP in 2024 because let's understand the whole thing. First of all, it will not be one nation, one election at all. Only in 2024, for convenience sake, they will dismiss all the state governments which has got an extended tenure. And those state governments whose tenure is ending before 2024 will be extended. Those are all BJP states. Whereas those states which has got another 3 years or 4 years are non-BJP ruled states. So BJP will dismiss those or maybe dissolve those assemblies and they will push these particular states to go in for elections, which means it is an advantage 2024 for BJP. After that, it will be like a normal election. Any state government can fall anytime. Again, you will go for fresh election. And any state governments, any assembly can be dissolved either through defections or maybe coalition politics or anything can happen. So daily there will be elections. Every month there will be elections. And it will be multiplicity of elections altogether. It is not going to be one nation, one election. It is going to be a constitutional fraud by the BJP for 2024.
Okay. Last word to Ghanshyam Tiwari. Ghanshyam Tiwari, as someone who looks at Indian politics very closely, I want to ask you if you really believe that one nation, one election is something that is going to come up in this special session of Parliament. Because, you know, this government is unpredictable. For all you know, here we are, you know, spending so much airtime talking about one nation, one election. All of us are diverted to this. And dhamake se there is a UCC introduced in this special session. What's your sense on what's going to happen?
I think the most easy pathway that I can give to this government is maybe they have a astrological parrot who will come out of the cage and pick a chit, and then the government will decide what the agenda is. It's a shame that in a vibrant democracy a special session is called and no one knows the agenda. Every time Prime Minister has put one of his whimsical dreams on the nation's altar, the nation has had a nightmare, whether it was Notbandi, whether it was hastily implemented GST, whether it was lockdown, or any other decision this government takes. So I believe that this session is not going to be about, I hope that this session is not going to be about another nightmare that the nation has to face because Prime Minister has a unique dream.
So is it the UCC? Is it one nation, one election? Is it women's reservation? Women's reservation is easy to do. Maybe there'll be some degree of consensus after all. Just push that through, guys. I think the people of this country will be grateful for that more than one nation, one election. We'll leave it there for the moment. Ghanshyam Tiwari, thank you very much. Basuri, good to have you on the show. Sujata Paul, thank you very much. Mr. Gandhi, good to have you on the show as well. With that, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. Up next, Sujata was complaining that we are not talking about the India alliance and what has happened there. We are talking exactly about that after we come back from the break. Do stay with us.